Hello, everybody. Welcome to the webinar. My name is Wes.
My name is Matt.
And today we're going to be talking about the best giving platform for your church, the best church giving platform. I've been looking really forward to this one, Matt.
Now, when we say the best online giving platform for your church, rest assured, we're not here to sell you anything. We're not going to tell you what's the best platform. We're just going to give you the tools for you to determine what's best for you and your church.
Because every church is unique and different.
Yes, and therefore your needs and your online giving platform preferences and needs will also be different.
All right, well, before we jump into all the things, just a quick reminder to everybody, our YouTube channel, we post so many videos on that YouTube channel. Go ahead, check it out, subscribe if you haven't already. And if you are the kind of person that likes to talk to other people, I like to talk to other people.
I love talking to other people too. I'm doing it right now.
I love talking to other pastors and church leaders. The ChurchTrac user group, such a great place to talk to other leaders out there, not only about ChurchTrac, but just ministry in general.
Yes. I mean, you can jump into that group and ask any question about any part of your ministry, not just how to use some aspect of a ChurchTrac account.
Yeah.
So if you want to know what programs people are doing in the summer and need some inspiration, jump in the group and ask.
Yeah. Now, if you are a ChurchTrac user, just want to quickly let everybody know that when you're in the application itself, if you click that green help button to the top right of your screen, that's where you can ask us a question or check out our online user guide. But I do know there are a lot of people in here that are not ChurchTrac users. They're here to learn about online giving because that's what we're here to talk about. So here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about first how online giving fees work. This is a big thing, and I think it's something we need to spend some time going through because there are a lot of different ways they work.
Yes,
so we're
it
going to
can be a little bit tricky to navigate too.
It can. So we're going to show the math behind it and everything. I promise it won't be boring. And then we're going to jump into the three types of ways you can accept donations online. That's through peer-to-peer versus online giving versus through your existing church management software. So we'll look at the pros and cons of those and everything. And then we're going to finish things off with how to choose the right giving platform. Things you should look for. Things you should definitely avoid.
Yes. There are some pitfalls that we want you to not trip into.
Yeah. So is everybody ready out there? And by the way, this is 100% live. I get asked this question on occasion when we do some other webinars. And they're like, is this live? Because they're used to other companies that just play pre-recorded videos and say they're live. No, this is 100% live. So like I'm looking at the chat right now. I see you, Robert, Frankie, Gail, Jack, everybody joining on in. I encourage you, jump in on that chat. Now we're going to be going through a lot of stuff. I encourage questions. We may have some time at the end. We can answer some people's questions.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll even be pulling some questions throughout. So that if you have any questions as we're going through this about whatever we're talking about in the moment, drop that question in, and if we're able to, we'll pull that question out and answer it as we go.
Yeah, and I regret saying this, but bring some hard questions too.
Well, hopefully we won't regret it, but we'll see.
Well, worst case scenario, we can always think through it together. All right, well, let's go ahead. Let's get started. So online giving fees, how they work. So when it comes to accepting donations online, there are fees associated with it. There's always fees.
Always fees. Even when they say there are no fees, rest assured, there are fees.
So what I want to do is talk first about credit card donations, because that's one of the biggest ways that people give online. So what I have is my handy-dandy whiteboard that I'm going to pull up here. And we're going to talk about credit card donations, what the fees look like with those. So credit card. This is so cool. I can write on a board digitally. All right.
Technology's rad, man.
It is. And Matt, I'm going to have to pull out my calculator here just because math is hard. So I'm going to get my calculator out as we go.
Not without enough coffee, anyway.
That's right. So credit card fees. Anytime you're accepting donations online, there are credit card fees associated if you're doing credit card donations. Typically, what you'll see is a company, they'll charge like a percentage plus like an amount per transaction. Mm-hmm. Probably the most common you'll see out there is a company that says 2.9%. That's like an industry standard, which we'll talk more about in a second. So 2.9% of that donation is a fee plus 30 cents of that donation. And I'm talking in US dollars here, but this can be transcribed to other currencies. So 2.9% plus 30 cents for donation. Pretty common. So the way that would work is if you have a $100 donation, so we're going to say $100 times 2.9%, and then plus 30 cents. So I'll use a little $, 30. All right. So if I do my math, 100, 2.9% of 100, that's $2.90, right?
Yeah.
Make
yep,
sure I'm
yep,
not.
Yep,
okay,
yep.
$2.90 plus the 30 cents. So we're looking at $3.20. Is that right, Matt?
Yes, sir.
All right, just
I'm
want to double
tracking.
check. So $3.20 of that transaction. That means if you accepted a donation of $100, $3.20 of that would be the fee for that donation. Now, that may not sound like a lot, but when you start doing a lot of donations and everything, this can actually add up to be pretty substantial, especially larger ministries or ministries that just have a lot of online donors. You could be paying thousands of dollars in fees every year just for accepting credit card donations. And just to kind of give you an example, like ChurchTrac, through our integration with Stripe, we have a 2.1% fee for nonprofits and plus 30 cents. And so when you do the math behind that, that's $2.10 plus 30, so $2.40 is what it would cost. Is that right, Matt?
Yep.
Okay.
So far, you're good so far.
All right, so if you're using credit card with our Stripe integration, $2.40. But at the end of the day, I mean, that's kind of how it works. That's the generic way of how online giving works with credit card donations. Is everybody good so far? Everybody hanging with me?
Let me know if we're going a little too fast.
All right. So that's credit cards. Another way that people can give online is through ACH. So ACH, this is North America primarily, or direct bank transfer, some people call it. And this is when somebody gives directly from their bank to your church's bank. And so pretty common what we'll see is a merchant processor, online giving platform, they'll charge a percentage fee. So like with ACH, they'll say something like maybe 1% of that transaction plus, and then maybe something like 30 cents for that transaction. So plus 30 cents. So if you take that same $100 donation that someone gave your ministry, so $100 times 1% plus 30 cents, you're looking at, let's see here, $100, 1% of 100, that's $1 plus 30 cents. You're looking at $1.30. Is that right, Matt?
Yeah, so even lower than the discounted credit card fees with Stripe's integration. That's nice.
Yeah, so that's an ACH fee that's pretty common. I mean, obviously, depending on the online giving provider you're looking at, they may have something like 0.8% and then plus 35 cents for Stripe. Or maybe they'll have something like no fee for it, but they'll have like 3%, and that's it. It is all over the place when you're looking at these giving platforms. And so that is kind of the gist of it. Now, I want to talk about credit card versus ACH. So typically what you'll find is ACH is going to be the most cost-effective way for your donors to give online. And really, there's not much more a person has to do to donate through ACH, because instead of giving credit card information, they're just giving their bank account and routing information.
Yeah, routing number, account number, and that's about it.
And so just to give everybody an example here, let's say, all right, you have that same online giving provider with credit card. So we'll do credit card versus ACH. I like a good comparison. Except it's not ACT, it's ACH.
There we go.
All right, so credit card versus ACH. So if we're looking at credit card, we're going to say 2.9% plus 30 cents. So that's the fee. And then looking at ACH, we're just going to say it is a, how about, in this case, we'll use ours as an example. So just a 25-cent flat rate, which is not uncommon. We see a lot of companies do that. So 25-cent flat rate per transaction. So this means if, let's say you have a $100 donation with credit card. So again, back doing the math, 100, and I got to put a parentheses or else I'll forget things, times 2.9% plus 30 cents. So doing the math, what is that? $2.90 plus 30 cents.
That was, what was it, $2 and, $3.20?
$3.20,
Yeah.
All right, just making sure. As long as you're with me, Matt. We got one person here. All right, so $3.20 per donation, whereas ACH, that's just a 25-cent flat rate all day long in this case. So we're going to say 25-cent flat rate. So again, 25 cents. So now let's do some math here and talk about donors that are giving repeatedly to your church. Let's say you have a donor, they're giving $100 each time. Just use easy math. In many cases, maybe $200, maybe $300. I don't know. And let's say they give every other week. Okay? So Matt, 52 weeks in a year, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, just double checking.
Yes,
52
sir.
weeks in a year. If I divide that by 2, it gives me 26, right?
Yep.
All right, so 26. So $3.20 is our credit card fees per transaction there. And I'm going to do times 26. So this will equal, let me get my calculator out because math is hard, 3.2 times 26 equals $83.20. All right, so $83.20 per donor per year. I need more space here. So $83.20 per donor per year if they were to give with their credit card every time $100 with credit card. Now ACH, we're looking at a 25-cent flat rate. So if we do 25 cents times, let's do the same exact $100 transaction. So 25 cents times 26 weeks in a year. So let's do the math. 0.25 times 26, 6.5. So $6.50 a year.
That's a big difference.
It's a huge difference. So in the chat, tell me, what do you think of the difference there between credit card and ACH? Now I know some of you are looking at this like, Wes, I already know this. Some of you may be looking at this for the first time and being like, holy moly, like that's a lot of money.
Yeah, there's a few people that have said they're not using online giving right now and they're interested. So yeah, we've got some people who maybe y'all are just dipping your toes into the water of online giving.
So those are the two biggest ways that you can accept donations online in terms of just like the way that people give. And you can see there's a huge difference between ACH and credit card. I mean, just doing the math, so we're looking at 80, I'm going to take it to the next level here, Matt. So the difference between the two, so if I did with just this math, $83.20 minus $6.50. So the difference is $76.70. So $76.70.
Per person per year.
Per person per year. So for every person that is giving with credit card as opposed to ACH, you're spending $76 roughly more a year for that donor. So if you were to switch a person from credit card to ACH, you would save $76 a year on average for that person. So if you multiply that by, I don't know, like 12 people, so 7670 times 12, so just a dozen people, you're looking at $920. $920.
That's huge. It's almost $1,000.
I sit there, I put a decimal point in the wrong spot. 920. That's a lot of money. So I think the moral of the story is ACH.
ACH is ideal.
Yes.
So yeah, if you migrate a dozen people at your church, a dozen donors from credit card to ACH, you can save about $1,000 a year for your church. Multiply that out by more than a dozen, and you're saving a lot of money. So I think someone even in chat just mentioned, Gail, you're hoping that you can get more people to make the change from credit card to ACH. Yes, that's the goal, is to migrate more of your donors over from credit debit to ACH.
Yeah. Now, obviously, there are situations where you're just going to have a lot of donors that maybe are just one-time donors, and them setting up an ACH transaction isn't necessarily something they're going to want to do. Personally, like I've given to churches, and it's a one-time donation that I've given because I was just visiting, hanging out, and I didn't want to put in all my bank routing information and stuff because I'm not a regular donor.
Yeah.
But regardless, for your regular donors to your church, push ACH super hard because it's going to save your church a lot of money. And if you're in a situation where you have not yet started using online giving and you're wanting to incorporate it, this is so great because you can start with the right foundation and really making it aware to your donors just how much cost savings your church can get with using ACH. So I like to really hit hard on that just because there's so much money that a church can save by utilizing ACH over credit card, at least in the North American region. All right, so let's talk about some other fees. We talked about credit card fees, Matt. We've talked about ACH and the fees that are typically associated with it. Obviously, they're very different depending on whatever provider you're using.
Right.
But what are some other fees that we find with companies that do online giving?
Some will charge like either a monthly or annual subscription fee. So you have to pay them just a flat rate every month or year just to even use the software.
Okay.
And what's worse is some of them will still stack a transaction fee on top of that monthly or annual fee. So you're still paying them twice.
Yeah.
We've seen some do text giving fees. So if the platform offers text to give, they'll charge per transaction for that, and it may be the same as another one of their transaction costs or different. You'll have to do the research to find that out.
Yeah.
There's mobile giving fees. there's also recurring donation fees. And that's actually something really key because we recommend that whatever platform you choose to use for your church, that you make sure that it allows for recurring donations. However, some platforms will charge for that that convenience fee essentially for recurring donations.
Yeah.
So we at ChurchTrac, we actually know we took care of this. If you're using the Stripe integration with ChurchTrac, your donors can set up recurring donation, but ChurchTrac handles the recurring donation side of things instead of the donor through Stripe directly, which means Stripe won't charge the donor that reoccurring donation fee. So we found that little workaround there.
Yeah, although that was something that actually, is part of when you're dealing with different merchant processors, and especially in our case, because we partnered with one, is they started charging our churches that fee, and we're like, okay, how can we figure out how our churches don't have to charge that fee? And we realized we can just set up our software to where we handle the recurring donation side of it and not Stripe.
Yeah.
But yeah, we get deep into a lot of stuff and how that works. But long story short, just be aware of those types of fees. And then lastly, some providers will charge like a setup fee, and sometimes that setup fee is very minimal. Sometimes it's downright insane.
Yeah.
I've seen some charge thousands of dollars, which kind of blows my mind. But we'll talk more about what to avoid a little later, so you just kind of know about that. Final thoughts on fees. So when it comes to fees, you should always ask the following question: how is this company making money? Like that is always the question I ask when I look at not even just online giving providers, but any company that I'm looking at using for some sort of service. And when it comes to online giving providers, more specifically, who pays those fees?
Yes, that's the biggest question. What is it? Is it you, the organization, like the recipient of the donation, or is it the donor, or is it maybe someone else, like the platform or the bank covering that information? In fact, somebody in chat even asked, "What about Zelle?" We'll talk about Zelle in detail here in a couple minutes.
Just you wait.
But yes, I know why you're asking about Zelle, because Zelle advertises no fees.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that in just a minute.
All right, so we've gone through probably the hardest part for me, just because math is hard. But going
You
through
made
the
it,
math,
Wes. You're done.
But I think it's so good to look at the math behind this so we understand how these providers are making money, and also how it affects your church and whenever you're accepting these donations. All right, so let's look at the 3 different ways that your church can accept donations online, and that's through peer-to-peer apps, online giving providers, and through a church management software who is integrated with one of these. So first, peer-to-peer apps. Some of the biggest examples I can think of, Matt: Cash App, Venmo, Zelle.
So all peer-to-peer or P2P, we'll probably switch to just call it P2P because it's just easier to say. All of these apps have one big benefit, and that is that they are hugely popular.
Yes.
Some of these apps, like Cash App, are some of the most downloaded apps in the world. Just period. Not just these financial transfer payment apps, but like they're one of the most used apps in the world of any kind of app.
Yes.
And so for a lot of your congregations, a lot of you watching this right now, you are in a congregation where a lot of your members are probably already using one of those apps. So there's already a convenience in getting them to adopt using that app to donate to the church. However, here's the thing. Just because they're popular doesn't mean they're right. So let's talk about these 3 most popular apps: Cash App, Venmo, and Zelle.
All right, Matt, give me the skinny on Cash App. Tell me about it.
So I did a little bit of digging recently and even wrote some stuff. If you go to our blog at churchtrac.com, go to our blog. I've got some articles in the past couple of weeks about all 3 of these. With Cash App is one of the most popular P2P apps in the entire world. In fact, I think it is the most popular in the world.
In the U.S. In the U.S., PayPal is the most popular in the world.
That's right. So Cash App is one of the most, if not the most popular in the U.S. It also offers reoccurring donations. And again, we're going to hit on reoccurring donations a lot here. That's a huge thing. You need to make sure that whatever platform you choose has reoccurring donations. And I emphasize that so much, to the point that if you're looking at a platform and it doesn't offer that, I recommend you just go ahead and take them off your list.
Yeah.
They do have a pretty high credit card fee, though. They charge 3%. So that's even higher than what Wes was doing on the whiteboard.
And what I was doing on the whiteboard, that was the industry standard rate. You shouldn't be paying even that, to be brutally honest. So.
Yes. Hopefully you're using a platform where either you or your church management software has negotiated a lower rate. So 3% is high compared to other options out there. They also recently had a pretty big security breach. literally all U.S. users had their accounts compromised.
And when you say literally, you mean literally.
Literally all of them. All the U.S. users, not worldwide, but in the U.S., everybody's account was compromised by a data breach. They say they've shored up that breach. Hopefully that's true.
Time will tell.
Yeah, time will tell. So if the majority of your members are already using one of these apps, especially Cash App, it's going to be easier for you to convince them to start using that platform to donate to your church. So there's already a big convenience there. But it's worth considering. But when it comes to Cash App, best practices are don't recommend your users or recommend that your members don't donate with a credit card because of that high fee.
Yeah.
Cash App doesn't charge for debit card or a bank account transfer, so make sure they're giving through that method instead of credit card.
Yeah.
And then also, because of that data breach, I recommend that you create like a separate savings account or banking account at your church just to receive Cash App donations. That way, the rest of your church's money is not compromised by any breach.
Okay, Cash App. Now, Venmo. Let's talk about Venmo, Matt. Venmo, very similar to Cash App. In fact, I have all three of these, by the way.
Okay.
I personally use Cash App, Venmo, and Zelle for a lot of different things. Venmo. What is the difference between Venmo and Cash App?
It's also very popular. It's one of the more popular in the U.S. and in the world. It's very popular among younger generations.
Yep.
So like my generation, our generation, we're millennials, and Gen Z, we love Venmo.
Yeah.
So if you have a lot of younger people at your church, go ahead and promote this platform. The downside is they don't do reoccurring donations, and that's a problem. The reason why reoccurring donations is such a big deal is because if a platform doesn't have reoccurring donations, you're going to experience a very low retention rate with your donors on that platform.
Yeah.
Meaning you won't be able to expect them to donate again through that platform if they've donated once. Recurring donations allows you to capture their donations and maintain a longer string of donations or a longer commitment from that person financially.
Yeah, and so for that reason, that's the biggest thing that sets Venmo apart from Cash App, lack of recurring. All right, Zelle. We wrote a whole blog on Zelle, but let's talk about Zelle, Matt.
We've had a couple questions in chat about Zelle, so let's talk about Zelle. Zelle is extremely popular. My church was using Zelle. In fact, it was the primary platform we were promoting because of the no fees.
And I've actually, up until recently, have been working with a lot of churches and encouraging them to use Zelle because of the no fees.
Yes. So the church wasn't having to pay any fees. The donor wasn't paying any fees. Now, nothing in this world comes for free.
Nope.
Right, Wes?
Nope.
So how was Zelle free? It actually isn't free. The way Zelle works is Zelle is co-owned by a group of banks in the U.S. And as of right now, the banks are paying the fees to Zelle to cover those transaction costs.
Yep.
I don't expect the banks to do that for forever. I cannot imagine that a bank would be willing to pay a fee for forever. My guess is
that... But they want to do it because they're nice, man.
Yeah. They're well known for their generosity.
Yes, they are.
So, I expect that Zelle will eventually start integrating some fees over time. You know, they'll boil that frog nice and slow and add some small fees at first as people have adopted it and gotten used to it, and then they'll slowly acclimate the users to those fees over time. So that's not going to last forever.
They're basically like a lot of tech companies where their goal isn't to make money. Their goal is to get the user base, and then eventually when they get that user base,
then monetize.
Hurry and monetize. Yeah, and so I think that's happening with Zelle.
But beyond that, there's an even bigger problem, because what we just talked about, that's sort of a convenience thing, not even really an actual problem. When it comes to Zelle, the money in your account isn't covered by federal law. The way it works is that banks are required by federal law to cover your money if you're ever a victim of fraud.
Yep.
But the laws aren't really keeping up with the technology. I mean, we know technology advances at breakneck speed and laws are lagging behind. So a lot of people have experienced fraud through their Zelle account like they do with their bank account. But the banks aren't required to cover that transaction or cover that fraud. I even came across a story in the New York Times. I mean, the New York Times is writing about this.
It's not some small paper.
Yeah, they did a story on it, and they interviewed a victim of fraud. This guy was in the hospital, and he had his cell phone and his wallet stolen. And he banks with the same bank through both his credit card,
I think it was through
debit
Bank
card,
of
and
America
Zelle.
or something,
Yeah, Bank
yeah.
of America. And the guy that stole all his stuff went to some ATMs, bought a bunch of stuff, and did some transfers through his Zelle account on his phone. And Bank of America covered all of that fraud except everything to do with the Zelle transactions.
Which was the biggest because he wiped out his entire account.
Yeah, it wiped out his whole. Well, it was almost his whole account. Literally, I think over $10,000. Huge. I can't afford to lose $10,000.
Golly.
And the Bank of America, even though they covered the other fraud transactions through the credit card and debit card, they didn't cover it with the Zelle transactions.
Yeah.
So that's a problem. My church has stepped away from Zelle just because both our church and our donors aren't safe on Zelle right now. So as of right now, if Zelle doesn't fix these problems, we recommend you avoid using Zelle.
Yeah. And Zelle kind of is a little snippet of all of these peer-to-peer apps, P2P. They're great for churches that have a large donor base that's already using them. And they're also handy for accepting payments, maybe like for events or something like that, where you're wanting to quickly get payments for that. But because of their limitations with some of them, with recurring donations, with Venmo, with the high fees, what's the other one? Cash App. There's so many, it's hard to remember, everybody. Because of those limitations, it's really hard to use them on their own. And also, they don't do a lot of reports and things like that. And so the lack of the reporting and everything that they do with contribution statements, you still have to use them in tandem with another tool that's going to do that for you. So that's what I always say is, hey, if you want to use them, great. Just know that that's not the number one way for you to accept donations, not the most cost effective, and you're still going to have another solution that's kind of like your foundation of your online giving.
Yeah.
So
the next up is dedicated giving platforms.
Yeah.
So instead of just person-to-person, peer-to-peer giving, there's also whole platforms devoted to just transferring money or storing money like PayPal, Stripe, EasyTithe, PushPay, SecureGive, and there's dozens and dozens of others.
Givelify, yeah, there's so many out there.
Unlike P2P apps, a dedicated giving platform gives you more customization. They give you a lot more reporting options, which is really key, especially when it comes to managing all of your church's finances and your giving and contributions. And it's also helpful because if you're using a platform like that, you can export those reports into your church management software if you're using one, and that makes it a lot easier as well. It offers better features and usually better pricing.
Yeah. Typically, I see the pricing for a lot of these dedicated platforms better. But there is a big con with all of them, no matter how great they are. And the con is it's just hard to choose the right one. I already saw in the chat, I mean, some of you are asking specifically, should my church use Givelify? Should my church use this other platform? So there's just no way we can say, should your church use this, because we don't know your church. We'd have to take time to talk to you individually. But when we get to later, you'll see why. So when it comes to trying to figure out this, the biggest thing is the pricing and figuring out what does that pricing mean to your ministry. Story time. I've got a story.
Oh, I love story time with Wes. Gather around, kids.
So I was working with a church planter. This was last year, and this church planter, Matt, he told me I was helping him set up accounting in ChurchTrac, and he was telling me about his online giving provider, and I was like, awesome, and which one are you using? And he told me, and he said, yeah, I love this one because they don't have any fees. It's just a flat monthly rate.
I don't know.
And so, of course, the first thing I thought was dead giveaway, because there is no such thing as an online giving provider that doesn't have fees. It's just not a thing.
Yep.
And even in Zelle's case, it's not a thing because the bank's covering them. And so I did some research in this company after our conversation, and this company posted all over their website, no fees, just flat rate, blah, blah, blah.
Big bold letters all over the website, huh?
And then as I did more digging, it took me about 10 minutes. I actually found the fine print. There are fees. The donor pays the fees, not the church.
Oh.
And so that's how they're able to advertise and everything. And their claim of no fees meant like no chargeback fees and NSF fees and all these other random fees that half of them I don't even think are real. And so it was just one of those things, at the end of the day, you really got to be on guard. And when people say sweeping claims that we have no fees, let your radar get up and don't.
It's a big red flag.
Yeah, it's a huge red flag. Eventually, that church planner actually discovered this because he started getting.
The donors started complaining. What about this?
The
What's up with
donors
this?
were just like, "How come I have to pay $4 extra to give?" And
That hurts.
And so he got rid of that platform and switched to something else. And it was just so funny because I've been in this industry for a long time, and I see it never fails. There's always some new company that comes out of nowhere and they offer something about no fees, trying to get these churches to bite into that and then realize, oh no, there are fees.
Yeah, the problem is it's in that platform's best interest for you to not fully understand their fee structure. Mm-hmm. So if they can obscure some of those details, the better for them. But it means that you have to be savvy enough to do the digging to find out where some of those hidden costs can come from and to do that research. We recommend, we recommend looking into like user reviews. That's usually, for me at least, where I find out where some of those hidden fees are actually coming from with these platforms.
And just an example, like let me pull up my screen here, just going on Stripe's website, and I'm pulling them up just because they're the platform we integrate here at ChurchTrac, but they have their pricing page. So if I click their pricing page, which my internet decided to not work.
There we go.
There we go. So they lay out their pricing and they say, hey, this is our pricing and everything. And then from here, as you scroll down, I can get more into the details of their pricing. And so this is something you really need to examine this. And if there's a company you're looking at and you're like, I don't fully understand if they have all their pricing listed out, then you need to actually reach out to them and say, hey, I want to know what are your fees for chargebacks. I want to know what are your fees if a person gives with an American Express card as opposed to Visa, because that is a thing. Thanks, American Express. Super weird. And so you want to really just kind of talk to the company. But I think the first part is just when you're looking at a company, go to that pricing page and really examine that, because that's going to quickly help you decide, is this a company you even want to deal with? Because if you look at those percentages and everything and see, oh gosh, this company is asking for 2.9 plus 35 cents when this other company is asking for 2.5 and everything else is the same. So you really just got to look at those pricing pages when you're looking at these different companies.
And then do a lot of math like Wes did a little while ago.
Yes, go back to the math. Now, the cons of some of these companies is what, Matt?
For these dedicated giving platforms, or we're talking about church management software yet?
The dedicated ones.
Giving platforms. So we're talking about there's a lot to choose from, and it can be difficult to ascertain or figure out and discern what the pricing structure looks like in all of its fine details and exactly how that's going to impact both your organization and your donors. So go ahead and look into those user reviews and dig through what that pricing structure looks like on the ground for the people who are actually using it, so that you can determine which one is going to be best for you and your church.
Yeah. Now, the last way people give, so we have peer-to-peer, then we have using a dedicated online giving provider, then we have using one that's already built into your church management software. So here's the thing, a lot of companies, ChurchTrac, Church Community Builder, Realm, ACS, and the 200 other church management softwares out there, many of them already integrate with a merchant processor, online giving provider that enables you to accept those donations. And what's so great is when these integrations and these partnerships that they offer, it gives you a lot of pros. So the first one, probably one of the biggest, is that giving will automatically show up in your church management software.
Yep.
This is great. That way you're not having to import stuff. Another one, having your giving all in one place makes it a lot easier when it's all into that single platform.
Makes it much easier to manage. And also another benefit is that church management software company has probably already done the work to negotiate lower rates with that merchant processor. So they've done a lot of that work for you. You don't have to try to negotiate lower rates. I've talked to churches that have tried to negotiate lower rates, and sometimes they're successful, and sometimes that merchant processor is so big they look at a little church and say, no, you pay these rates or you don't use us.
Yeah.
So ChurchTrac, we have negotiated lower rates with Stripe so that you can accept donations online and have all of that added to your ChurchTrac account automatically, integrated seamlessly, but also at lower rates for the transactions.
So I was just showing Stripe's page, 2.9% plus 30 cents their main website. But if you're a nonprofit with ChurchTrac, it's 2.1% plus 30 cents for credit card. And then we just have a flat rate of 25 cents for ACH. And so that's a really great thing, is that oftentimes church management platforms, the partner that they integrate with for their online giving to go through them, they get some awesome fees for that, or not awesome fees, but awesome rates. So that's something to keep in mind. The other thing too is most are going to offer features like recurring donations, contribution statements, text giving, stuff like that.
Yes.
That's pretty common in almost all church management platforms. I very rarely come across a church management platform that doesn't have some of these features because these are like paramount for churches.
Yes. Your church management software will choose a merchant processor that offer these features because they know your church or ministry needs it.
Yes.
So we're not going to give you a platform that doesn't give you the things that you need.
Yeah. Now, the cons, I mean, really the biggest con, I would say, is that many church management softwares, including ChurchTrac, only integrate typically with one merchant processor because all of the legwork involved in fully integrating a online giving platform with a church management software, it's too much to have multiple integrations. It gets too complex. And so most of these companies, I mean, you saw the same thing with, I think, PushPay and Church Community Builder, which I think merged or something.
Yes.
So that's the thing. But a lot of these companies, they have one that they use. And so that is kind of something you're looking at. You're like, I didn't really want to use that particular one, but that's the only one my church management software actually integrates with. Just keep that in mind.
Yeah, the reason why that's a con is because, like we mentioned earlier at the top, where we recommend you to try to determine what platform your members are already using, like Cash App or PayPal or Venmo. If you're using the church management software as integration, you're going to have to try to migrate your donors to all on the same platform, and that can be a lot of work. We're going through that right now with my church, and it's just a change, and it's hard to do that for a large group of people.
Yeah, we actually have an article on our blog you can check out, migrating to online giving, and we give some good insight into how you do that, because that is a big thing, switching people that are giving with one way to another way. So those are the cons of it. So we've gone through the three biggest ways, kind of covered that whole gambit of things. Now let's kind of talk about how to choose the right platform, because
this is why you're here.
Yeah, this is why you're here. And I'm sorry, this wasn't like to be some bait and switch where, you know, we do all this lead up and then quickly talk about this, but it was to really give you the whole picture of everything, because you need to know this stuff. This is like the foundational stuff you need to know.
Yeah.
So that way when you are looking at online giving providers, you really know what to look for. So here's the questions that I would ask when I'm looking at an online giving provider. And the first question is not even asking the online giving provider, it's asking your people. This is probably the most important, to be honest. Ask your members, how are they going to donate? So you want to know how your people will donate or want to donate and stuff, because that may determine the platform you choose.
Right.
And so, case in point, there was a church I was working with, a small church plant out in Chicago, and every single person had Cash App. And it was just so easy for that church just to have all their people use Cash App because of just the fact that literally every person was on it, and the pastor was very familiar with it, and it was just a slam dunk for them. But I've encountered other churches where they have a lot of people that are like, hey, we're pretty savvy. Like, we don't mind setting something up if I can just do like a direct payment to the church or something. And so that's the thing you want to first ask is your people, what are some ways that you're comfortable with giving if they're not doing online giving yet, and just kind of work through that. Next question. How many people are donating?
That's key because knowing how many people donate online or are willing to donate online will determine whether or not you use any of these giving platforms first of all, or which one you prefer to use.
Yes.
Because the fee structure will then determine whether it's going to take out a huge chunk of that donation and make it not worth even using an online giving platform, or you can maybe find an online giving platform that doesn't take as much of a fee out of those transactions, and then therefore having that online giving platform with your members is worthwhile.
Yeah, and looking at the monthly fee too, if the provider has a monthly fee, like is that monthly fee going to be too high in comparison to the actual number of people using the online giving? So it's really good to know how many people are even going to give online, because I have encountered some churches where at the end of the day, 99% of churches, I think, should use online giving. But there are always some churches out there where it's like, dude, every single person is giving religiously through a check, or they've already set up like a bill pay through their bank, and they're already doing that. And so there are a very small segment of churches where online giving is just not necessarily a thing they need.
I talked to a church yesterday that saw their online giving drop during the pandemic, but their but their members started mailing checks, and that
Interesting.
increased through the pandemic. Which, I mean, the typical
Wow.
experience is the opposite. People stopped giving cash or check and started transferring everything online. So I thought that was interesting.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Here's another question to ask. What is the average size of each donation?
And the reason why that's important is because if you're using an online giving platform that has those transaction fees, you need to figure out what those fees are, first of all. And then second of all, if people are giving like really big donations online and you've got a really high per transaction fee, that's going to take a huge chunk out of those donations.
Yes. I want to show the math behind that, Matt, if I may.
Yes.
So, for example, let's say your average donation at your church, we're going to say $200. So $200, and then let's say the giving platform you're looking at, their fee is 2.9% plus 30 cents. We're just going to keep kind of basic math here. So if I do the math behind that, I got to get my calculator out because I'm a millennial that doesn't know how to do math without a calculator. So $200 times 2.9%, that's $5.80 plus 30 cents, so plus 0.3. So we're looking at $6.10 for that one. Now, if I have a different online giving provider, same size donation, so $200. I apologize, my handwriting is atrocious, everybody. But hopefully you can read my semi-legible handwriting. Now let's say this platform, their fee is 2.5%. So 2.5%. I'll put a little percentage up here just because earlier I didn't. And then let's say this transaction fee is higher though. Let's say it's 0.3. You know what? We're going to do even a higher one. Let's say, even though I haven't seen a provider go this high typically, let's say 40 cents. So they're charging 40 cents more per transaction, but it's a 2.5% rate. So when I do the math, so back to $200 times 2.5%, it's $5 plus 40 cents.
So $5.40. There you go. So it's still cheaper. It's still cheaper by 70 cents.
So $5.40. This is why it's so important. I hope, did this make sense, everybody? Like, this is why it's so important to know, like, your average size of your donations and everything, because if you do have larger size donations, then having an online giving provider, especially if most of those people are giving with credit card, then maybe it's best to use the one that has that lower percentage fee, even if that per transaction cost is higher, like this one's a 40 cents as opposed to the 30 in the other one. So hopefully that makes sense. So there is some math involved when you're trying to figure some of this out and you're looking at the types of donations and the size and everything. Another question you need to ask here, do you need text to give? Is that something you actually need?
Yeah, this is another thing you need to ask your members, not only which platform they prefer to use, but also what's the method. Do they prefer to do it by credit card? Do they prefer to do it through ACH, or do they prefer text to give? The reason why is because text to give used to be really popular.
Back in the day.
So you may, like, it's very popular even still among people ages, I think it was 45 to 60 is what I saw.
Okay.
So there is still a demographic that likes text to give, but it's not as popular as it used to be. It kind of peaked way back, like over 10 years ago, back in 2010 when the Red Cross took up donations for Haiti. That was the biggest text to give.
So it peaked when a lot of the people in high school I went to high school with peaked, is what you're saying.
Yeah, back when we peaked, text to give also peaked. But that was back when online giving wasn't quite a thing yet, but everyone had a cell phone.
Yeah.
So that was that weird in-between time when text to give could really take off. But now it accounts for, like, I think less than 20% of all online mobile giving.
I mean, the stats are all over the place, and it
Yep.
depends on what company you look at to give you the stats, because
Right.
there are a lot of companies that want to push text to give, even though I think in some cases I've seen the rate as low as 1% of giving in churches is through text giving.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
The downside to text to give, and I know we're going on a rabbit trail.
That's what we're here for.
The downside to text to give is that there's a very low retention rate because there's no way to capture that and follow up with them.
Yeah.
So people that give text to give oftentimes just give once and then never again, at least through that platform.
Yeah. All right. Does this platform have recurring donations? That's a question you need to ask. Typically, it is.
Yes.
Like,
We sound like a broken record. We've talked about recurring donations probably 7 or 8 times so far in this webinar, but it is key. The Blackbaud Institute saw that there was a retention rate of 26% for all first-time donors when a platform had reoccurring donations. That means that for everyone that donated for the very first time to a nonprofit, 26% of them continued to give afterwards after that first donation. So that was a huge increase in retention for organizations that adopted recurring donations.
Now, what you said, we were talking earlier before we even started this, and it was some crazy stat about like 3 years was the average.
Oh my goodness, yeah, the Blackbaud Institute also did not just a 1-year study on and got that well, it was a 23 or 26%, but they did a 3-year study. So going back across 3 years, any organization that adopted recurring donations saw a 64% retention rate over 3 years.
Yeah.
So if a donor started giving and chose recurring donations, 64% of them continued to give over a long period of time.
One argument that a church gave me is, well, recurring donations is something only the young people want to do. Yeah, my dad's 72 years old, and he does recurring donations and loves it. It is not a young man's game by any means.
You may see some sort of demographic preference, but you get to set it and forget it.
Yeah.
Like that. What was the name of that oven?
It was
that infomercial.
Oh, I can't remember. It was a rotisserie oven. But
yeah, and they would yell, "Set it and forget it." You can do that with recurring donations.
Yes.
And that's the benefit. So no matter what the age of the donor is, people love to be able to just set that up and then not have to remember it again.
So another question, we're going to fly through them here, but can you export your donations easily into church management software that you have? So if you already have a church management software, you need to look and see, is this giving platform I'm thinking using, can I export into it easily? Another question, can your donors view their giving history? I know this sounds kind of basic, but you would be very surprised. There are some platforms out there where they don't make it easy for your donors to see what they've given, and the only time they can see what they've given is when you give them contribution statements. So that's something you need to keep in mind. That's why we have Church Connect at ChurchTrac, because we want to make it easy for people to see when they've given at any time. So those are a lot of questions to ask. So I want to close this with avoid platforms that, and then
this is what to avoid.
And I'm going to write all this in red.
We just covered some questions you need to ask of a donation platform before choosing it. Now we're going to tell you just some general things that you should look to avoid. First of all, any platform that charges more than 2.9% for a credit card donation, go ahead and just take them off the list of possible choices because they're already charging you higher than you should have to pay.
Yeah, that's anything more than 2.9% on credit card is just, I'm going to say it's absurd. You should not pay more than that.
Number 2 is if they have a high percentage fee for ACH or direct transfer donations. Anything over 1% is really high. In fact, I say 1% is already high because I think you shouldn't have to pay a percentage fee at all. It's even better if you find a platform that just charges some low flat rate instead of a percentage fee.
Yeah. Third.
High monthly costs.
Yes.
So if you're paying hundreds of dollars, $100 or more, I would say if you're paying anything over $100 a month to use a platform, that's already too high. And then number 4, a high setup fee. Now, with these high monthly costs, high setup fees, here's the deal. This is one exception to these rules. If you're able to reach out to that merchant processor and negotiate a really low rate, like a really low transaction fee, let's say you can negotiate below 2%, 1.7%, 1.5%, then maybe you can look at a high setup fee as a trade-off, and it may still be worth using that platform and paying that high setup fee. But outside of that example, avoid platforms that charge a really high setup fee. And then the last thing is have long contracts. Now again, the exception is if you can lock in a really low transaction rate, then maybe you'll have to sign a contract to lock that in, and therefore it may be worth doing that. But chances are, contracts should be avoided
I'm
altogether.
going to completely disagree with you. So contracts are never good for you. They're good for the other person. The reason why a company would have a long a contract, especially for multiple years, is not for your best interest in your ministry. It is for their best interest because they want to keep you. So honestly, there are very few companies out there I'd recommend that even ask for contracts. So I would put that very low on your list. Unless you are just doing a volume, I would say, of at least a couple $1 million a year in donations online, I would not sign contracts with any company because that's just a red flag. There are a lot of platform things that we could say you avoid, but those are probably the top 5.
Those are the top 5.
To help guide you. I know it feels like we covered so much. I mean, we went through so many different things. Just to recap, Matt, We covered how online giving fees work, both with credit card and ACH, because those are the big ones. We've covered
The 3 different avenues, 3 different types.
yes, so whether it's peer-to-peer or a dedicated giving platform or just using an integration through your existing church management software. And then we've covered a lot of these different questions and how to choose the right giving platform. So a lot of good stuff to take away here.
Yes, a lot of good stuff to take away. And now we're going to transition into a time for you to ask your questions. There's a few questions that we haven't gotten to in chat already. While you're thinking of any other questions, go ahead and drop them in. While you're thinking of those questions, I want to recommend you subscribe to our YouTube channel. I dropped a link to that channel earlier. I'll go ahead and do that again. If you copy and paste that YouTube link, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have other videos on online giving or other aspects of the ChurchTrac software. Also, go ahead and join our private Facebook group. Again, you can join that group, ask any question about ChurchTrac, but also just join a community of really cool ministers from all over the world that love ministry so much they would love to help you do your ministry as well.
Yeah, and I see some stuff in the chat. It looks like Pastor Jason from Australia. Yeah, Australia is a little bit different in how they do that. And
It's not just that Australia is different, it's actually that the United States is different.
that is true. Yes.
In the U.S., nonprofits give contribution statements for the donor to then file those donations on their taxes as a tax exemption. I think we're actually kind of unique in that. I don't know if there's not many other countries that do that. So Australia's, you're not going to be able to relate to.
So Australia is the
giving
norm,
statements.
is what you're saying
Oh
compared
yes,
to us.
yeah, true,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, it's a good note there. So let's do this. I mean, we're starting. Yeah, we'll just keep the chat open, and so we'll just continue this time and just ask us some questions. We'd love to tackle these live here. And just to throw this out there, I know that I want to be cognizant of everybody's time since we have kind of hit that point. So if you do need to head out, hey, thank you so much for joining us. And if there's anything else we can help you out with, you can just create a support ticket or just shoot us an email, support@churchtrac.com. But we'll be more than happy to stay in here for a few extra minutes and talk about the specifics.
Jack Watts, you asked earlier, you set up online giving through ChurchTrac. You're not sure if you're getting the discount. How do you know? Log into the Stripe account. You'll be able to see what those transactions are and what the fees are, and you can then calculate what that percentage is. But if there is a discrepancy, or if you feel like you should be getting that discount and you're not, I actually ran into a situation where suddenly at my church we weren't getting the discount. We were getting the discount, then weren't.
Really?
Yeah. So I reached out to Stripe, to their support team. They found out what was going on and even then credited the money back to us.
Oh, wow.
So that was resolved that way. So go ahead and reach out to Stripe directly for that. Is there a debit fee on Stripe through ChurchTrac? When it comes to debit like ACH, again, it's just a flat rate of 25 cents.
Yeah, and that's if someone's actually setting up ACH giving with their banking account number and routing information and everything.
Pastor Jason said, can we use other platforms through ChurchTrac? Does Z-Stripe work outside of the U.S.? I don't know if Z-Stripe works outside of the U.S., but you can use other platforms through ChurchTrac. We only integrate directly with Stripe. But like we mentioned earlier, your church management software and your online giving platform, when choosing a platform, does it allow you to import into your church management software? With ChurchTrac, that is the case. Wes is even showing you
I want
on
to show
the
that off,
giving
yeah,
screen.
just because I don't want this to be like a whole thing where you think we're trying to push Stripe the whole time. If you click the import button on your giving screen in ChurchTrac, we actually have a few providers so I could select something like Giveify or PayPal or PushPay. And then I can drag and drop that CSV file that they'll provide you with. So if you're using one of those providers, or you can even utilize by just going through a manual mode. So if you have like just a regular Excel sheet or something, you can do that too. So that's built in.
All right. Through Stripe, can the church opt to have the transaction fee added to the giver's contribution? Readers United Methodist was asking that. And the answer is yes. The donor can either choose to cover that fee or not. So they just add a little extra to the initial donation. Eugene Knighton asked, does ChurchTrac have a minimum fee? No, we don't have like a monthly fee. We don't have any sort of minimum.
No.
It's just a per transaction rate. So if somebody donates $1 through a credit card, they'll get charged 2.1% plus 30 cents for that dollar donation.
Yeah. And one thing I do want to make mention, and this isn't even solely unique to ChurchTrac. There are some other church management softwares out there. So our integration with Stripe, that is an integration that we offer at ChurchTrac. We don't actually make money from that. And that's something I didn't even point out earlier just because it wasn't the best time. But Long story short, most online giving providers, they have to make money somehow beyond just the transaction fees. And so they either have like a higher transaction fee and then skim off the top, which is pretty common practice, or some have a monthly fee and stuff like that. So ChurchTrac, because this is an integration, this isn't like the sole part of our software of what we make money on. This is just an integration. And so that's why we don't have like a monthly fee to use online giving with ChurchTrac, because you're already paying for your ChurchTrac subscription. So just wanted to put that out there. So we don't make any money on online giving. So we have no dog in this.
Yes. Is the donor's banking, Sabrina is asking, is the donor's banking and routing information something that's seen by the ChurchTrac administrators at the church, or is that something they privately enter? Most donors don't want anyone having their banking information.
So ChurchTrac, through this integration, like many church management softwares, this is an integration in which the merchant processor handles all of that information. ChurchTrac does not handle any financial information like that. And so, no, you're not going to see any of that stuff in ChurchTrac.
Okay, so a few people were asking for like fee structure with ChurchTrac. There was a few of you that asked that. When it comes to ChurchTrac, if you are a 501c3 organization, if you're a nonprofit, and you set up an account with Stripe, we've negotiated lower rates with Stripe than their sticker price, 2.9% plus 30 cents. We charge, I shouldn't say we charge it because we don't charge anything.
Stripe, yeah.
Stripe will charge only 2.1% plus 30 cents for credit card donations and only a flat rate of 25 cents for ACH donations. There is a text-to-give option with the Stripe integration, but that's all done through credit card. Whenever they text, they enter their credit card information. And so the credit card transaction fees apply with text-to-give as well, so 2.1% plus 30 cents.
And I'm putting that in the chat just for everybody.
Perfect.
So,
oh, and Richard, yes, you right above what Wes is typing, you asked earlier, can a QR code be used? With ChurchTrac, yes, we even give you a QR code. So you have a QR code custom to your account that will take people to the Church Connect page where they can donate to your church. So yes, QR codes can be used, even if you use other platforms. There are websites that will generate a QR code for you. So just go ahead and plug in that URL, spit out a QR code, and share that with your members and start taking donations that way.
Yeah, good questions. At the end of the day, I mean, there are so many different platforms to choose from. And every church is unique. And so, I mean, as churches start looking at all this stuff, they have to ask the questions. And they have to look at the math behind it. And yes, it's not an easy thing, and it's not a fun thing in most cases. But when you do your due diligence and actually look at the pricing structures of some of these online giving providers and everything, and compare it to the type of donations you plan on taking in and everything, you can save your church a lot of money. And we love seeing churches save money because it's the worst when I see a church that's just been raked over the coals by another company and they're paying thousands of dollars a year in fees that's completely unnecessary. And so anything we can do to help you out with that. And our integration with Stripe is not always the best solution for all churches. Obviously, our pricing is pretty low and it's almost impossible to beat. For most churches, but there are still solutions out there for other online giving providers that you need to consider. Don't take our word for it. Really do your research.
Sabrina asked, how does the donor switch over from other online giving platforms to using ChurchTrac? We've written some stuff about this. Go ahead and check out our blog. Real quick, though, at my church, what I have done is I have just been the dedicated person that people come to set up the online giving platform or on their phone. So I just say, hey, we have like a slide about it during the announcements at our service, but they also can come to me directly, hand me their phone, and I'll get it set up on their phone. So literally just I hold their hands through the whole process.
Yeah, and sometimes that's what it takes, especially for members that may not be technologically inclined, but they really want to just simplify how they give to your church. In fact, my church, I have personally witnessed that where one of the church members was just like, I don't know how to do this. And the other church member was like, I don't know how to do it either because they were older and they didn't even have smartphones. And so we helped set that up for them. And so it's really neat how you can just, at the end of the day, it's just talk to your people.
Yep. I mean, churches are hesitant to make changes because they know that their members are hesitant to make changes.
Yeah.
But my experience, people aren't actually hesitant to make changes. They just want help.
Yeah, it's well put.
Yeah.
Well put. Any other questions here? We'll answer one more question, and then we'll head on out.
Judy, does ChurchTrac charge 1% per donation with Stripe? No, there's different transaction fees, whether it be credit card or ACH. 2.1% plus 30 cents for credit cards, 25-cent flat rate for ACH.
Yeah. And again, I just want to hit on that. There are so many giving providers out there that accept ACH as well as credit card, and many of them don't have a percentage fee for their ACH, especially if they're an integration already with the church management software. And so I'd be a little bit weary of any giving platform that charges a percentage of ACH, to be brutally honest.
Yes.
Because there are just too many out there. Like, there are 200 plus options available. In fact, I would say there's probably 500 plus at this point. And there's just so many platforms out there that have 0% fee with ACH. And so I would really consider that.
All right, I think that's going to be it for today. We've answered a whole bunch of questions.
Yes.
I apologize for anyone that didn't get their answer or didn't get the answer they were looking for or get their question answered. If you have any further questions, go to your ChurchTrac account, click on that green help button, submit a support ticket, and we can take care of you there. And if you have any other questions as well, just go to our Facebook group and ask that there, and everybody in that group can help you out as well.
All right. Well, you all have a fantastic rest of your week, and we will talk to you again soon. See ya.